It's Kelly with Women for One, and I am so excited today. We are getting ready to launch our new website. We have an incredible guest with us here today to speak to our community about many topics that I'm passionate about. So I can't wait to get started. I want to introduce Dina Proctor, who I would say is first and foremost a Women for One truth teller, but I think she would talk about some other things that she's done that have just shifted her clients as a business coach, a life coach, and also an inspirational speaker. And she's the author of, and I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up, Madly Chasing Peace, How I Went from Hell to Happy in 9 minutes a day. So I want to talk a little bit about that with her. She also has this fabulous process that I have implemented in my life, the 3x3 meditation that she'll talk about. So welcome, Dina.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I'm so excited to share this space with you.
I'm really excited for our community because I just love women that have the courage to talk about what they've been through, because we're all gone through intense experiences in our lives, but more importantly have taken action to move out into a space of creating the life they want. So that's kind of what Women for One is all about. And can you tell us a little bit about you and your story about Dina so we can get a reference for how you came to be where you are right now?
Sure. I'll kind of give you like the shortened overview. At the end of 2008 is when I hit my rock bottom points in my life. I had spent the last 10 years previous, I was in my early 30s, and I had spent most of my 20s in and out of clinical depression. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I had gone to different psychiatrists and doctors and therapists, just trying to figure out what was wrong. It felt like there was this emotional black hole inside of myself, and no matter what I was doing, nothing was filling it up. I was trying different antidepressant medications, anti-anxieties, group therapy, one-on-one therapy. I even tried experimental medications at one point. And nothing was really working to soothe this kind of, I feel like it was, I really describe it as a black hole, like this emotional black hole inside of myself. I felt like nobody could really understand the depth of unhappiness and complete lack of motivation that I had to even get out of bed in the morning in my life. And I kept thinking throughout my 20s, like, if I just fall in love, like that'll be what fixes it. Or I know what I need to do. I just need to get a job that's, my passion, and that's going to be what fixes it. So I was moving jobs at one point, like every 9 months. I kept upgrading my boyfriends, moving cities, like just changing everything about my exterior world to try to fix the way that I felt on the inside. And when I hit that rock bottom, probably 2 years prior to my rock bottom point, I had moved into yet another living situation with people who were kind of casual drinkers. They were definitely not, they didn't have a problem with alcohol, but they were the first people that I lived with that liked to drink a beer or two every night after work. And so I fell into that habit too. And alcohol had really been like kind of on the back burner for me. It had never been something that really grabbed my attention. But when I started living with them, and because I had spent so much time and energy towards filling this emotional desperation inside of myself, the alcohol and me collided in this kind of really highly addictive way very quickly, I think because of the emotional state I was in at the time. Within just a matter of weeks, I became a daily drinker, and within just a couple of months, probably like 3 months, I became a round-the-clock drinker. Like I would need a drink to get out of bed in the morning. I drank throughout the workday. I probably had constant alcohol in my bloodstream for at least 2 years, just constant, because it became something that it was the first thing that really made me feel confident inside of myself. It quieted the negative thoughts. Like it was the solution, really messed up, like so sad, but it was the solution that I clung onto in that desperation. And when I started drinking so heavily, I started to become a person I couldn't recognize anymore. Like I probably had months where I couldn't look myself in the eye. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I was stealing money. I was lying to all of my friends. I was hiding my drinking, like hiding bottles everywhere. And waking up next to men I had just met, and the lying, the thievery, everything just became. I had spent years in my depression, like throughout my 20s. When I would go to bed at night, I would just pray, like, if this is all there is, I don't want to wake up in the morning. Like, if it's just not going to get better.
And there are a lot of people like that in the world,
yeah,
trying to fill that hole with something.
it's more common than you think. We're always looking to the outside. But at that point, at the end of 2008, is when I crossed the line from wishing that my life would just be taken easily to actually planning my suicide. And so that was my rock bottom. I planned a date. I planned kind of a time and what I was going to do. What ended up happening is I kind of unintentionally ended up in an addiction recovery program. I was the most classic case of denial. I couldn't see that I actually belonged there, even though I drank so heavily.
Right.
And after spending just a few days in that program, it became for me a curiosity. I wonder what I could learn here. There's some kind of wisdom here that I wasn't privy to in the past. And hearing other people talk about this emotional place inside of them that felt so desolate and empty, I could identify with these people in a way I had never identified with the doctors and other people that had tried to, help me feel better over the years. So it took me about 3 months before I actually committed to doing the steps of the program, but that was what my turning point was. And just to kind of wrap how that brought into the meditation was after 3 months in this program and finally agreeing to quit drinking, I chose a mentor to lead me through the steps of the program. And she started working with me right away, one-on-one. And she said, Dina, before we even start on the steps of this program, you need to learn to meditate. And I remember looking at her like, what the heck is meditation going to do? Shouldn't I be writing letters that I'm not mailing or, hitting pillows with baseball bats? I just thought that's so impractical. But she was really tough love with me. She was really good. She just said, if what you thought would fix you was fixing you, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. She so held her ground. And because she was so confident in that, I wanted what she had. And so she instructed me. I didn't think it would do anything at all, of course, but her specific instruction to me was to sit still every morning for 20 minutes and focus on my breathing. I didn't think that could be that hard, so I just agreed to try it. And what happened was the first few mornings, because I had just literally quit drinking, within days of starting that. So when I would sit still, my body would start shaking kind of uncontrollably. I couldn't control the shaking and sweating, real, just sweating pouring out of every pore of my body. And the negative thoughts, should I kill myself? Should I not kill myself? When I sat down to be still, were just eating me alive. So it was intolerable for me physically, emotionally, mentally to sit still for longer than 3 minutes. I would max out at that 3-minute point. I couldn't even, never mind meditate, just sit still. I couldn't do it for longer than 3 minutes. I was compelled to move after that. But it would nag at me later in the day, the only thing she told me to do was to sit for 20 minutes, and I can't even do that. So throughout the day, I would try and see, maybe I could do a few more minutes right now. Maybe I could do a few more minutes right now. And I would consistently max out right about 3 minutes. So that ended up being what it eventually turned into 3x3 meditation, because I was doing these 3-minute here, 3-minute there in order to make her 20-minute quota.
Right.
And but that ended up being what changed everything about my perspective, everything about my life. I had this amazing experience in higher consciousness where I had no words in my head. Everything I
love that.
saw was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I was just in love with everyone. Yeah, so that shifted. And I started realizing that throughout my 20s, when I was plugging into everything outside of myself to try and fix myself, the reason it wasn't working was because I kept moving and changing, but taking myself with me. So the meditation, and even those short bursts, just 3 minutes here and there, was getting me to rewire. Literally, it rewired my brain, the way that I think, the way the synapses fired in there, the way my perspective on the world, and my attitude towards life. So everything that I have created for the last 5 years, since or 5 or 6 years, has been based in the insights and the wisdom that I get when I'm in that meditative state.
The 3x3 meditation.
Yeah, just
Isn't
3
that
minutes.
cool how it just organically evolved and you customized it to what your needs were? And it just brought up a question for me, because I find that a lot of people are like, okay, they get very rigid, especially when they have a mentor or there's all these teachers out there, and they get very I have to do it this way. And then if they don't succeed that way, they feel like they failed. And I just had that happen with a cleanse I did. My naturopath told me to do it one way. And then I checked in with my intuition every day, and I'm like, this one part of this does not feel right. I checked in, I was unconscious about it. So I stopped that, but I still, it's I just adjusted a little to have the success towards, to keep going. And it sounds like that's what you did.
Yeah, and for me, it wasn't intentional. It's not like I wanted to have success with this. I didn't even think it would work, but it was just something I wanted to commit to. That good girl inside of me that got the good grades, that was the one that wanted. I just wanted to accomplish
whatever it
that,
takes,
you know?
right?
I
Yeah.
know.
I mean, but now you can learn to do it that way, consciously, right? And
It's
customize.
so true. And I honor what you're saying about listening to your intuitive guidance, because even the people that I coach, most of them do 3x3 because that's why they coach with me. That's what resonates with them. But some of them don't. Some of them will do a couple times a day, but one will be 15 minutes or one will be longer than that. And so I always say, listen to your inner guidance more than you listen to any other human being, even if it's the coach that you're paying. You know, your intuitive guidance is always going to get you, even if it's a little bit different than what everybody else is doing. That's the voice of your particular individual higher wisdom.
And what I love about that is, first, a lot of women, and I hear them all in my head asking this question, so I'm going to say it intuitively, like, how do you differentiate between the intuitive guide and the negative self-talk? And I do it because it feels like a muscle to me and a radio signal that I've practiced for many years. But it sounds like when you started, you're like, I don't really know what my intuition is, so I'm just going to follow this lady, you know, and this mentor of mine. And then, but now, do you have an answer to that question? How do you differentiate?
Oh, yep. For me, if it's a voice in my head, that is not intuition.
Right.
And also, if it has an urgency to it, if it feels compulsive, it's the same way that I determine what my cells of my body really want to eat and what my naughty craving wants to eat. You know, it's like if it's screaming and compelling, the way that I was with alcohol addiction, I would have a thought of, oh, I could go for a glass of red wine. And suddenly I would look down and half the bottle's gone. It's like it was just, I became a zombie. You know, it had a compulsive, urgent quality to it and became this like, I couldn't see anything else until I satisfied that. So it's the same thing, because sometimes we have like an obsessive thought like, oh, I just have to send that email. I can't relax until I send that email, or I can't relax until I call this person. That's generally the part, that's the head talking. Yep. It's not the heart. There's not an urgency to it when you're in your heart space. There's more of a relaxation to it. And for me, it's more of a knowing, if that makes sense, rather than an actual voice. So I'll just kind of get this idea that comes to me that says, why don't I wear this, or why don't I walk there, or why don't I call this person? Yeah, instead of it being the voice in my head.
For me, it's
I like that.
I like the knowing, but to start out, when I would ask that question to people, and now I feel it, it's a quiet whisper, and I wrote about that on Women for One, that the quiet whisper, like, why don't you call it Women for One? Not call it Women for One. You know, why don't you call? And then these quiet suggestions, like, it'll be okay either way, but why don't you try this? You know?
Yeah.
It feels good.
Exactly. And it's more gentle, and it just assimilates with you better. Yeah.
Yeah. And so beautiful. To summarize what you were saying, I was kind of writing with my right hand, and I'm left-handed, so I can't really read it now. But, I think the first thing that hit me when you shared your story was the place of the heart you came from when you talked about planning to kill yourself. I mean, that's a big, courageous step to say it out loud and really go through and own, I call it the toadhood, own those dark places and say, it's not who I am. It's part of me. Own it, but, I can be better than this. But I loved when you said the word curiosity, that being curious. You were just curious, like with that addictive recovery program, right? It was a curiosity. You weren't like, I have to go here, right? It was a curiosity, would you say?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I love that word curious. I love open, curious, playful, let's see, because that has a real open feeling emotionally to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you had the intuition piece, but then you took the action. And I just love all of those pieces coming together. And I wanted to read the quote that I have of yours when you said, my happiness is determined by my choice of thoughts. And the word there for me is choice, because you're talking about, you made these choices, these small steps, but they were huge steps in your life. Can you talk a little bit about that quote?
Yeah, exactly. And I like the word choice in there too, because most of us, our thoughts are thinking us. We don't realize that we have a choice of where we want to put our attention. And a lot of times we determine or make conclusions about reality when we're really just seeing what we're looking for or what we're used to seeing. We don't see the whole picture because we tend to draw what we're looking for, whether it's conscious or not. So I think about thoughts as thoughts are just kind of like cars going down the freeway. And so I don't have to get into every car that I see, but there's nothing bad or wrong that all these cars are going by. Like, it's really okay that we have, 60, 80,000 thoughts a day. But where we get stuck with it is here's how I kind of think about thoughts in general is I kind of analogize the neural pathways in our brain to the way that the Grand Canyon was formed. The Grand Canyon wasn't formed by like a big explosion or a one-time event. Over thousands, or maybe it was millions of years, just like little streams of water would wear away at the rock. And it took a really long time to form these huge, gigantic canyons. So I think of our neural pathways like that. It's like 10,000 thoughts a day of, I hate my body, I'm fat, I don't have any money, like all these negative. Yeah. It's like wearing away and becoming this well-worn path. So then it seems like a fact. It seems like this is what my reality is. But really, when we can learn how to, instead of letting that stream or that energy source go down the most well-worn path just out of habit, when we can catch it, interrupt it, and direct it towards what we do want to do, that's where the choice is. So the power of this, like I teach 3 minutes 3 times a day, and the power of it is that you can interrupt your subconscious programming. When I interviewed Dr. Bruce Lipton, he wrote The Biology of Belief.
I love that
wonderful.
book. I love The Biology of Belief.
He's wonderful. He told me that when you meditate, because I just wanted to feel validation for 3 minutes 3 times a day. That was really why, And he told me that interrupting your subconscious programming constantly and consistently throughout the day can actually be more powerful than a longer meditation, just once a day. I mean, they're both equally powerful.
It's kind of like interval training, right? It just made me think of that because I have this trainer and she's like, I want to run a 10K. I've never run more than 6 miles in my whole life. I'm just not a runner. And I run around a 10K and she goes, try 2 minutes on, 1 minute walk, 3 minutes on, 1 minute walk. And it's like, burst, stop, and it made me think of it when you said that. Like, it's like interval training.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
so
great.
Like every method is valid, and he wasn't, saying, oh, this is better than that or whatever, but like equally effective, because he was saying you're interrupting your subconscious programming, which is, if you're picturing the water going down the Grand Canyon, it's like getting back to the water source, directing it where you want to go, interrupting, directing it that way. And you do that enough, that new pathway becomes the most well-worn path. It becomes the new habit to think that new way. So that's where the power of our choice of thoughts is like, just because we've thought something for so long doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best thought to think or that it's even true. So that's where, and it also pulls into the open-mindedness and the curiosity. The more that we can say, like, if this is true and if this is the reality for me, I'm open to that. If there's something else for me to be seeing here, I'm open to that too. So this way you keep them kind of, you're not denying the thing that feels like a fact, but you're opening yourself up to there being, another possibility there.
I was just about to ask you a question, but you answered it because, I know myself and a lot of women and men and all of us say, well, that's just wonderful. Fake it to make it, right? But it's not. It's not faking it to make it, right? It's acknowledging and not making a choice and being curious, acknowledging that this is what your thoughts are saying. Yet knowing there are other options and being curious about another perception. Is that how you would explain it? Or
yeah, and you're making a really good point, because if you have been in debt for years, or you've been overweight for years, or unhappy or whatever for so many years, it's not it's not as effective to start picturing yourself in your perfect body on your private jet, like toasting champagne. It's just because there's going to be all of those negative thoughts that burst in and say, that's not true, that's not true. I think of it more as a continuum. So think of it this way, kind of like a garden. Say that you just you bought a new house and it's been abandoned for like a couple years. You need to fix it up and all of that. And there's a garden space in the back that's been neglected. There just hasn't been anything growing. Well, you wouldn't just go in on that first day and bring in your pretty rose bushes and start planting them. You need to weed out the weeds. You need to till the soil so that it can accept and nourish the new roses. So it's the same thing with our negative thoughts. If we've been thinking so heavily negative about something, our weight, our relationship, our money for so long, we need to just soothe that a little bit or open ourselves up. Like, even though I've been thinking this so long, I wonder if there's a new possibility here, because that eases out the weeds and makes the soil more receptive. So when you start planting I wonder if it's possible, maybe my past thoughts about money don't have to have anything to do with my future experience with money. And you kind of get into this openness, the curiosity stage that we keep talking about. And that's what makes that the soil of your mind be able to be more receptive when you do start planting those roses. So it's, you're not denying that the weeds are there, and you're not saying they're bad or wrong or get out of there or anything. It's just, if this is the valid thing that the universe and my highest self is directing me towards, I'm open to be shown confirmation of that. But if there's something else for me to be seeing, I'm open for being shown that as well. Because then you can start, that helps you let go of the old belief if you're being led towards that new positive one.
And that's basically, I keep hearing the word cultivate, like you're cultivating that, right?
Yeah.
The cultivating. So I want to take it a little deeper, because I'm actually getting ready to do a webinar in about a month and a half with two people regarding emotional healing and a place of where, and I want to apply it to your story. So, for example, because I'm really interested in this conversation, I think it'll be this will be a great conversation for a lot of women to hear, because that's wonderful. 2008, you're at 2014 or 15. Oh my gosh, 2015. Oops, forgot a year. Okay, so what happens when the depression comes back? What happens, and how have you found other ways of healing your natural state that you cultivated for many years before this? Like what do you do now to allow for that to come up, not shove it down, and not just apply one little simple solution? And I'm not challenging you. I know you have an answer to this. It's more of, we're asking that. Like a lot of spiritual teachers we're finding are saying, not, Eckhart Tolle, different people are saying, just, it's an ascension. And I don't believe that. I believe it's more of an expansion daily, and an intention and a choice. So I wanted to just ask you, what happens when the depression comes back?
Yeah. Well, for me, I haven't experienced depression or, addictive cravings or anything like that. I haven't.
That's
that
amazing.
has led. I know. It's such a blessing. And I think it was because I had such a profound higher consciousness experience when I first started the meditation. I was just like rewired. I just think differently now.
Awesome.
But I like your question. I want to address it because I think of it, so many times we think, okay, if I could just get enlightened, everything would be okay, or if I just get happy. But we don't realize that it's not something that we accomplish and achieve, and we get a diploma we can put on our wall, and that means we'll never slide backwards again. It's what you were saying before, Kelly, about it being a muscle. So if you train to run a marathon and you run every few days and you're feeling great and you run that marathon, and then after you do it, it's kind of like, oh, good, I did that goal. And then you sit on the couch and eat potato chips for 6 months. After 6 months, it's like, oh, I'm not in running shape anymore. So it's the meditation is really an emotional and spiritual muscle that we're working out, that we need to keep constantly. But at the same time, that's not, because when I say that, a lot of people are like, oh gosh, I got to do this for the rest of my life. I'm not going to just achieve it and then get there. But I say too, like, we eat. If I told you, Kelly, you're going to have to eat for the next, every single day, the rest of your life, you're going to have to eat 3 meals a day. You wouldn't be like, oh my God, it's so hard.
Right.
It's like, it's not. That's how we take care of ourselves.
Right.
Exactly. And it's enjoyable and it's pleasurable. It's nourishing. So for me, I'm nourishing my soul 3 times a day. Not just my body, but I'm nourishing my soul 3 times a day. So to get back to your depression thing, I love analogies. So I'm going to share this analogy with you. It's not I didn't make this analogy up, but I can't remember where I first heard it. Anyway, it's using the analogy of temperature. So when you think about the temperature on the thermometer, if it's 32, like Fahrenheit, if it's 32 degrees or below, there's a possibility of snow. There's a possibility of sleet, freezing rain, ice. When you reach, 35, 40, 50 degrees, you cannot possibly attract snow into your experience. It's just not possible. It cannot snow when it's 50 degrees out. And definitely when it's 72 degrees out, there's just it cannot happen. Water cannot freeze at 72 degrees. It's a law, like law of attraction, law of gravity. So when I keep I'm analogizing temperature to vibration. People use the word vibration, right? So my inner health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, where am I vibrating at? What is my dominant emotion regarding that? Do I feel relaxed, expanded, open, generally happy? Then those negative thoughts of depression and all of that can't possibly come into my experience, just like the snow couldn't possibly come in, or heavily negative experiences with other people can't possibly come in. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm not 72 and sunny, like, every
Yeah.
day, all day. But when I feel that it's going down a little bit, I understand, I don't slip down like I used to into that, 32 degrees and below with all the snowy depression temperatures. But I can tell when I'm going down a degree or two or a couple of notches. Yeah, you can feel it. And that's where your work is to recognize, like, I'm not feeling at my best right now. And what I do is I'm open to it. I let it express whatever it needs to express. Because so many times, especially because we teach this stuff, and we can make ourselves wrong. Like, I teach this stuff. How come I'm feeling sad? How come I want to put the covers over my head and just stay in bed all day? Like, why am I having a day like this? I'm a teacher. But I kind of got over that, and I just say, like, whatever needs to be here to express itself to me, that I need to vent out or speak about or write about, I want this emotion to work its way fully through my system, because it will only stay stuck if I don't let it pass through.
So it's a surrender. Yeah, a surrender.
It's
and
totally a surrender.
And an allowing through.
Yep.
So have you done other kinds of emotional healing other than the meditation?
3x3, yeah, no. Well, I did the steps in the recovery program. I spent a whole year doing, amends and all of that stuff. So yes. And then I also have done a little bit with EFT, tapping.
I love tapping.
Yeah. And I've had a couple of really powerful breakthroughs using tapping. 3x3 is still my go-to when I want to, get an insight or have a transformation. But if I get stuck or plateau, I'll use another kind of modality to be able to do that. They're all valid. Everything really has
it's
validity.
Like a recipe for what works for you. And when you have that go-to, you're almost go into curiosity in an expanded way to find more techniques that will expand that temperature, like, raise it, like you said. And that's really my curiosity around it, around what you've been through, because a lot of people are like, well, okay, what if that doesn't work for me? Well, find what works for you. That's the message, right? Find what works for you. And that's where you go back to curiosity. You have to be curious to find that and have an awareness of what's happening in your life, right? And
exactly
I feel like that's what you did. So I thank you for sharing, because that was beautiful. I love that. So can we talk a little bit about your book real quick? Because your book is your story.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the evolution of, why you wrote that, just to share your story and to share the 3x3, or...
It's funny. It's a funny story how the whole book came to be. In early 2009, it had been, 2010, I guess, it had been like a year after I had gotten to my healing. I felt I'd gone through the addiction recovery program. I felt like I was stable and happy for the first time really in my life. Like, I just had all this freedom, no secrets anymore. And I wanted to get a hobby. And I was trying to decide between writing, knitting, and taking a Spanish class. So I was looking through, the college course, adult school thing, and just the writing class appealed to me. And so I took this 6-week class. And when I started writing, something came over me, Kelly, that I can't even explain to you. It was like this peace and this higher wisdom was just totally present as I was writing. It was really enjoyable. And after 6 weeks, I just quit the class and left it. And I went and took a Spanish class. It was like, I didn't intend to share that with more than just the writing group. But what ended up happening was I went on a Jack Canfield retreat. He writes the Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Right.
And something told me to share my writing with him. And when I did, first of all, he asked, like, did you bring more? Like, this is pretty good. I want to read more. And I just brought him, all 6 assignments I had done in that 6-week class. And he said, have you thought about putting these into a book? And I was like,
no,
I don't think so. I don't want everyone in the world knowing that I was a drunk and a liar and a thief. Like, I don't think I want to share this with the world, And he said, we could help you. I really think that this could be a book. This 3x3 could help a lot of people. And he also said, have you thought about being a coach? And I thought coaching was like not legitimate. I thought, you don't need a degree to be a coach. Like, that's really sweet, but no thanks. I don't even want that. So so the way that but his belief in me, and leaving that retreat, I had an editor for my book and a business coach to help me figure out how to do all this. Right. So it was like, the book came to be because someone believed in something that they saw that I couldn't see yet. you know? So it's funny to like how I don't really set goals for myself. I have an intention, like something inside of me knew that 3x3 was valuable. And when I was coaching people kind of informally in addiction recovery, they were having results and having breakthroughs with it. But I couldn't see that it could be greater scale. Like now I'm certifying coaches to become 3x3 coaches. If you would have told me that 5 years ago, are you kidding?
That's
so it was, I'm so glad that the universe like spoon fed it to me. Because if I would have known first day of writing class that this was going to become a book and I was going to share it with more than 10 people on this planet, I mean, I would have quit before I started. I couldn't see. So, but that's how this whole thing, and even me quitting my day job, never intended on that. I didn't even want to be an entrepreneur.
What was your day job?
I was like executive assistant, like administrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quit
like,
your day job, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's just, but that's how this whole thing was born. Was basically from a step on my path would lead me to an inspired retreat to attend or class to be part of or a person to meet, and that would advance it. So that's how this whole thing.
Follow your intuition, be curious, and be open to limitless possibility, right?
That's exactly right.
That's so cool. So how can people get in touch with you? Are there any programs you're doing right now? I mean, we'll have your website up and your book as well on the featured homepage.
Oh yeah, the thing that I love that I created that I really think is of most value is I have this video course that I recorded because I like doing video now. It took me a while to get comfortable with it, but I enjoy it now. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And so I think it's 28 videos. Each one is less than 15 minutes long. So it's 5 hours total, but it's really digestible. And in the videos, I talk about the key concepts, like what is it that prevents us from being able to change our thoughts forever, and how do you implement mini meditation for change? And I do a lot of work in depth in this video course about the body and weight loss and healing and health and wellness, and also about relationships, because I love helping people transform relationships. So that's kind of like my favorite thing that I have.
And what's it called? What's it called?
3x3 meditation video course.
Oh, it's the video course for it. Okay, great.
Yeah,
that's easy.
Video course.
It's simple.
Yeah, so it's just there on the website. And then I also have guided meditations, because when I first started meditating, I wasn't listening to anything, but I know that a lot of people like to do that. So I have a whole bunch of 3-minute guided meditations, awesome. And they're only 99 cents. So I just have them up on the website too. It's just a resource or starting point for people to get going. And I also do like free videos. I have a whole ton of free videos on the website too, just for people to get started with it and see, does this resonate with me? Like, do I even like this? You know, so you can immerse it without even, spending any money on it.
Have you done an app yet?
Because I don't have an app.
My 20-year-old and I just downloaded another meditation app. It's 10 minutes, and like you can buddy up and everything. So we're encouraging each other. And I was like, you should have a 3-minute app.
Oh, I love that. I would love to. That it hasn't. But you're not the first person to say that. So I feel like that's the idea that people are having that I might be growing into next.
To hear your voice, right, on an app. Yeah, that would be after they've become addicted to all your courses. They're like, I need Dina on my phone in case I'm, need to stop at a light and I want to hurt somebody because I'm so angry. Meditate.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Calm down.
Yeah. Well, and anything else that they can go to dinaproctor.com?
Yeah, everything's just right there. The book, the audios, the videos. Yeah.
Well, I'm just so honored to speak with you today. And thank you for such a heartfelt conversation, because I learned so much, and I love the honest conversations that flow that can really support and uplift women in our community to take and make their life even better.
Well, Kelly, what you create and the community you put together is just really off the charts. It's amazing, the connections that you have and the wisdom that everybody is sharing there. Like, it's just, I love, that our paths have crossed and that we can co-create in this way together.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm dumbfounded by it, kind of like you're like, I never knew I'd be doing this. The curiosity and the intention is just fabulous. So everyone, go to dinaproctor.com, get her book. I love it. And meditate with us. It'll uplift the world. Thank you so much, Dina. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.